Hello OzTREKK team, this is video 2 of the MCAT series. My name is Zachery D. I'm a first-year medical student at the University of Sydney, and I am here to help you make sure you succeed on the MCAT. So the question of today is, when should you start studying for the MCAT? And that's a very important question, right? The first thing you want to know before starting for the MCAT is, have you taken the necessary medical school prerequisites, right? So if you're applying to Australian medical schools, they're all going to require different prereqs. Same with Canadian schools. I'm pretty sure some Canadian schools don't even have medical school prereqs. But in order to do well on the MCAT, obviously we're going to need to take our sciences. So what are the sciences I'm referring to? So you're going to have to have general chemistry, organic chemistry, biology, physics, and then optional, you can have like a biochemistry or psychology or sociology. Those are obviously helpful courses to do well in the MCAT. At the end of the day, you want to excel on the MCAT, and I think having those courses under your belt will significantly help you with the learning curve of learning the content, and then 2, obviously applying that content to how the MCAT asks. So once you know you have those prereqs, or those, not even medical school prereqs, the MCAT prereqs, I would say, under your belt, the next thing is, when should you take the MCAT? I tell every student that I speak to, they need to take anywhere between 3 to 6 months to take the MCAT. 3 on the very short end, and you're doing this full time. 6 months if it's maybe something where you can only afford part-time, where you're in school, or you're working, or it's been years since you've taken the prereqs and you need to freshen up on content. So it really ranges depending on the student I'm referring to, but I always like to say maybe 1 to 2 months part-time, where you're focusing maybe on, we're going to talk about it more, but like CARS, the reading comprehension, freshening up on content, whether it's through Khan Academy videos or through UWorld, which we're going to discuss in a little bit, but getting yourself under the belt so you know when you're done your semester or you're done work or whatever the thing was that was blocking your time, and you can allocate 8 weeks or 12 weeks, you know exactly what you're doing every single day. And I think that's the most important thing. With an MCAT schedule, with saving money, with losing weight, it's about having a schedule that's tailor-fit to you, and you're aligning, okay, am I hitting these target objectives so I know, am I progressing at the rate that I think I should be? And that's why I can't give you a specific number, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, because every student's different, and I want you to make sure that you know that. So don't compare yourself to anyone, because everyone has different backgrounds, everyone learns at different paces, and everyone has different lives. So I think that's one of the most important things before we address the next question, which is, when should I write, do I know I am ready to write the MCAT? So when should you write the MCAT? Well, it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to get into a Canadian medical school, let's say you're supposed to start in August of 2022, because right now it's August 2020. So think you start in medical school in 2 years. So you'd want to have taken the MCAT by the latest some date in August of 2021. So 1 year prior to starting medical school will be the latest that you'll want to have taken the MCAT if you're applying for that following year. So if you're a 3rd year undergrad student finishing up their 4th year, then you can just go automatically into medical school if it all works out. Or if you're a 4th year applying to medical school, then you'll take a 1 year gap year. So make sure you know that the application process for getting into medical school, the Canadian or the US route, is going to take you a 1 year process. There's nothing wrong with the gap year, and a lot of students have been taking gap years because they need to either A, strengthen their application, B, retake the MCAT, C, maybe retake some courses, get some more clinical experience, shadowing. 2020 has been crazy, so that's a very normal thing to do. So don't think taking a gap year is a bad thing. The other option, obviously, is OzTREKK, which is Australian medical schools. So Australian medical schools, unlike North American medical schools, they start in either January or February. So let's say, just for making an example, you're supposed to start medical school at the University of Sydney in January of 2022. So the latest you'll have wanted to take the MCAT isn't a full year back. It's anywhere, but I'm not going to use a specific date, but I think it's anywhere between 6 to 10 months back. So I think it's April of 2021 or May of 2021. But each year, OzTREKK gives you those specific dates and those timelines. What's the latest date that you can sit the MCAT? But the point is, it's less than a year away. So maybe if you were thinking of, I'm going to apply to Canadian and Australian medical schools, I'll take the MCAT, March 2021. That way I can submit my applications to Australians, I can hear them back. I can also submit my applications to Canadian schools and hear back. And then I can weigh my options, see where I land, see if I have any interviews, any potentials in Canada. If not, great. I have an awesome opportunity in Australia with whatever schools that you hopefully can get accepted to. So that's really the gauge of the timeline of when you should take the MCAT. How do you know when you're ready? I think that's one of the most important questions that I wish I would have addressed earlier in this video. I gave you dates, and I don't like giving students dates and numbers and like specifics, especially if I don't know you, because every student's different. You write the MCAT or take the MCAT when your goal score aligns with your practice scores. You don't take the MCAT because it's March 2021. You don't take the MCAT because your parents said, sorry, my video cut out there. You don't take the MCAT because your parents said, why haven't you taken it yet? What's taking you so long? Your advisor's saying you need an MCAT score in, or your friends took the MCAT and it went well for them. None of that extracurricular stuff, extra stuff matters. The only thing that matters is you. So you take the MCAT. If your goal is a 510, when your score is plus or minus your goal score, you go and you sit the MCAT. Too many students let their emotions or extra stuff, like I said, their parents, the advisors, the timeline, dictate when they take the MCAT. And when that happens, that's why students retake the MCAT. Like I said, I don't know if I said this in my previous video, but I worked for ExamCrackers for 18 months. I worked with over 120 students one-on-one, and 92 of the students who listened to me, out of 92 that listened, 91 hit their goal score, or within plus or minus 2 of their goal score. Not because I'm some guru or some crazy tutor, but just because the numbers dictate when you're ready to write. So patience. So backtrack that. How do I make sure my goal scores align with my practice scores? Well, I'm gonna need you to write a lot of practice tests. So that's the next thing we're gonna talk about is you're gonna be wanting to write as many practice tests as you can over the course of the 3 months or the 6 months that you can get your hands on. The next question that students have an issue with is, Zach, but why am I gonna take a practice test? I don't know all the content. How can I write a test that I don't know? You will not know all the content even on the day you write. The confidence comes in the prep of getting good at reading passages, getting good at sitting 7.5-hour tests, seeing the time ticking down, not understanding questions, deciphering through answers. Like, there's so much more in the MCAT than just did you know the content. And the only way to get good at everything outside of just the high yield content is through practice. So the first thing I want you to get access to is something called UWorld. It is a passage-based learning tool. It mimics what the MCAT looks like in terms of their passages. They're a little more difficult than the actual AAMC, which is the company that writes the MCAT, the passages, but they're very, very well written and the explanations are phenomenal. So that's what I think is the greatest tool. So make sure you use UWorld, the 90-day access. I think it's 2,000 questions. It has all the subjects, and the explanations will help you in terms of learning the material quickly, because what you're gonna notice, the more passages you write or the more tests you do, the more you notice the same content that keeps getting asked, and more importantly, how that content repetitively keeps getting asked again and again and again. So I think starting with passage questions from day one is essential. UWorld is the resource I would recommend students to use. 90-day access to that should be sufficient. It should take you anywhere between probably 30 to 60 days to use. Depends on how often you're using the passages. Depends, right, if you're working part. So there's so much more that goes into how long it should take you. Alongside the UWorld, I want you to also purchase third-party full lengths and then the AMC bundle package. So there's 3 things. So the UWorld 90-day, if you can afford to, the UWorld 90-day access, so you get all the passages. The next thing is third-party full lengths. So that means third-party means any company outside the AMC that sells practice tests. I worked for ExamCrackers, and I really strongly believe ExamCrackers has really good practice tests. So I would purchase their practice tests 1 to 6, ExamCrackers. If you want more third-party practice tests, there's a company called Blueprint. You can purchase their exams, which they have 1 to 10, but their 1 to 6 are really good as well. And then Outside of that, maybe Altius, Altius. Their exams are decent as well, but in terms of order of if you're going to purchase more tests, it would be Exam Crackers, Blueprint, then Altius. And I would like you to be doing an exam starting from week 1, at least one exam every 7 to 10 days. I think it's very important to do so and not think that I'm going to just read these 7 set of textbooks and over 3 months I'm going to have it all internalized and I'm going to be able to critically apply it on an 8-hour test that I was afraid to write because I didn't want to fail. I want you to fail early and often and learn, whether it's through the UWorld passages, whether it's through the Exam Crackers, the Blueprint, or the Altius full lengths. That's that. The next thing I want you to purchase is the thing called the AMC Bundle Package. So the AMC Bundle Package is the gold standard prep that you want to use. There's one thing you buy, it's this. So what this includes is 3 things. So it includes their 5 full lengths. So the AMC has scaled score tests, exams 1 to 4, and then they have a 5th test, which is unscored, which is just as useful. And you can go on Google or Reddit, and there's like an Excel spreadsheet, and you can like scale the score yourself. So there's really 5 tests that are scored, before that are scored. The second thing has a thing called section banks, and the third thing is called question packs. So section banks and question packs are kind of the same thing. They're passage-based learning resources, just the section banks, these are the experimental, these are the difficult, these are the very research design heavy passages, whereas the question banks are more UWorld-like and they're a little bit more on the easy or traditional high-yield content side. I wouldn't say they're easy, but just more traditional. They're both very important resources to use. I would like you to do, if you want me to tell you the order I want you to use them, is I would use the question packs first because they're the easiest. There's 720 questions. Then I'd want you to do the section banks, which are 300 questions. Those are the hardest. And then do the 5 full lengths in order of the unscaled, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then before you write, repeat the section banks one more time because you're going to see things you didn't see the first time. Section banks are challenging. And 2, confidence to do well on the AMC material before you write the test. And that AMC bundle package content should probably be the last 5 weeks of your prep. It's all I want you to be using. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say in regards to when should you start studying for the MCAT. When should you start studying? We said is right once you've done the prereqs and once you have the allocated time, and then that aligns with the time is also dependent on when do you want to apply to medical school, when do you hope to start. And when do you know you're ready to write the MCAT is when your practice scores align with your goal scores. And in order to do that, it means you need to write a lot of practice tests. And we went over the companies. So you can use the AMC. They have 5 tests. Then we also said there's 6 exam crackers. There's like 6 blueprint exams. And then the Altius exams 1 to 7. So you have tons of exams. And then you have the UWorld 2,000 questions. So you start with passages early and often. You're incorporating a lot of practice tests early and often. And you're keeping a quantitative measure of how you're actually progressing. And then when your goal scores align with your practice scores, you're right. So I hope this was helpful. I look forward to future videos where we can break things down in a little more detail. But I hope that gives you a good overview. And I look forward to chatting with you guys soon. Peace.